Good morning and Merry Christmas from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, hoping you're enjoying your special weekend. You may be opening up gifts this morning that will need to be resized or exchanged for another color. What are the rules if it doesn't fit? What about those gift cards? Find out why you might want to use them soon. Heather Clary from the Better Business Bureau will be with us in just a little bit. But first, he's a Frankfort icon who has spent about 35 years at the Kentucky Capitol, and he wanted to continue. But the disastrous defeat for Kentucky Democrats in the November election meant Republicans will take charge, and even though that election swept him out of office. House Speaker Greg Stumbo handing over the gavel to GOP's Jeff Hoover later in the month. Stumbo represented Floyd County in eastern Kentucky for decades. He served in House leadership nearly as long, also a former Kentucky Attorney General. What led to the Republican tidal wave, and what is next for the once dominant Kentucky Democrats? Speaker Stumbo joining us to look back and look ahead. It's good to see you, Mr. Speaker.
Good to see you, Bill. Merry Christmas. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I know that in many ways you've been associated with that chamber for really about 50 years.
About
right?
50
Tell
years.
us that.
Well, I first got elected to the House, actually, in 1966. I was Speaker of the House for the Kentucky Youth Assembly, which is sponsored. It's a mock legislature sponsored by the state YMCA that still goes on today. And served as Speaker that year. So I've been in that chamber or associated with that chamber for really the biggest part of my life, for over 50 years.
When you look back, does it feel like it has been that time? I mean, you literally have been there almost continuously for about 35 years.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, because it was fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, there were trying days, obviously, and it's a high-stress position and a high-stress job a lot of times, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. To me, the House was like a courtroom. You never knew what was going to happen. And it was always exciting, and I enjoyed, I guess, every minute of it.
What were the circumstances that led to the Republicans taking charge of the Kentucky House for the first time in 95 years?
Well, you saw Donald Trump win this state, overwhelmingly. We saw, in my district, for example, we have about 3,000 registered Republicans. He got almost 12,000 votes. So I call it Hurricane Donald just got us, and it was a tsunami that I don't think even the Republicans saw coming. But, change occurs. We don't have revolutions. We have elections in America. I wish him the best. I hope that he can fulfill a lot of the promises that he's made to not only Kentuckians, but to Americans.
You said you don't think the Republicans saw it coming. Did you see it coming in the final days of the campaign?
Yes and no. We knew it was there. We had seen the polling that indicated that he was going to carry Kentucky, particularly in the East, huge. And so as I traveled through my district campaign, I'd see a lot of Donald Trump signs. Some yards had my signs and Donald Trump signs. So I knew there was this undercurrent there. We just didn't really know how bad it was or how bad it was going to be. It would have depended upon, obviously, how many people showed up to vote. But, they did, and the electorate has spoken. And I tell people, throughout my career, Bill, I've been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time many occasions. This time I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but that's okay. Life goes on, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
You said you will now be supportive of him, and you hope that he has good luck as the next president. He said that he would be able to restore Kentucky coal mining jobs. Do you believe that will happen? Nobody
in this state hopes that happens more than I do. I pray that he can do that, because I've seen the people in my district, for example, who've lost their jobs, they've lost their way of life. So I pray and hope that he can do that. I don't know that he can. I was disillusioned somewhat when Senator McConnell announced, I believe 3 days after the election, well, there's not really a war on coal. It's a free market problem, and so there's not much government can do about it. That's not true. There are things that government can do to help the ailing coal industry. I had a plan that I had discussed with the Clinton campaign to ask the government to build coal-fired generating facilities throughout the coal fields in Appalachia, not only in Kentucky, but in eastern or western Virginia, southern Ohio, and southwestern Pennsylvania, and use them as models for clean coal technology, and take that power and put it on the grid. The problem with the coal industry, Bill, is we don't have a market right now for Central Appalachian coal. So to create a market and provide low-cost energy and spend public dollars to do that is really no different than what the government did with the TVA or when the government builds a hydroelectric dam. You know, they spend government money, dam up a river, they create electricity through hydroelectric generation, and they put that electricity on the grid for consumers.
There have been many times through the years a talk of developing, with the aid of government, clean coal technology, maybe using the universities in Kentucky to assist with that, but that never got off the ground either.
Well, it never really got off the ground. Clean coal technology is one of the things that led to the demise, if you will, of the Central Appalachian coal market, because when the power companies invested in these scrubbers, they were able to burn the western coal, which is cheaper to produce. It's dirtier, but with the scrubber capability, they were able to burn that coal. So, Bill Sturgill, an old-time friend and a great business person, told me one time. He said, "When you see coal coming up the Ohio River, instead of going down it, the Kentucky coal industry is going to be going down that river with it." And that's what we see now. We see coal coming up the river, not only from the Indiana Basin fields, but from as far as out west, and they're using that for power generation.
Mr. Speaker, would you say that Kentucky Democrats lost their way in not distinguishing themselves enough from the national Democrats who emphasized a set of issues that may have been lower priority than here?
Well, we did that for 2 cycles. Remember, we won during the Obama years when it was tougher than it should have been this time. I thought that Hillary Clinton would have been more popular in Kentucky. She made some missteps, obviously, with things that she said that got reported out of context, quite frankly. But anyhow, it would have been hard for us to believe that we could have found a less popular candidate than Barack Obama to head the Democratic ticket nationally. But we did, and obviously we felt the repercussions from that.
In these recent statewide elections, Democrats largely had their support confined to the urban areas, to Louisville and Lexington and a few of the larger cities and educational centers. What do Democrats have to do in the Commonwealth to win again?
Well, I think you have to go back to the basics. You know, when you get knocked down, I'm an old football guy. When you get knocked down, you go back to the basics. I guarantee you Cal's going to go back to the basics after last night's loss of free throw shooting and rebounding and some things. I think Democrats have to go back to their basic roots, and those really are in the eastern and western sections of our state, with a message that will be heard there. I think we have to wait and see what the Republican agenda produces for those areas, and if they fail, then obviously we'll have a shot at regaining the confidence of the voters. If they succeed, it's going to be more difficult rather, for us to do that.
Is it possible for Democrats to take back over the House in 2 years, or is it going to be a chipping away process?
I think it's a chipping away process. I think they'll pick up some seats next time that were part of the Trump tsunami, but it's going to take a while, and it's going to take probably the election of another Democratic governor to see that happen in Kentucky. You
and this Republican governor did not get along very well.
That's an understatement.
You have wished, and yeah, he said good riddance at your defeat. How did you take that?
Well, it doesn't bother me. I've been called a whole lot worse by a lot better men than Matt Bevin, I can tell you that. You know, I was disappointed in him just the other day. He declared victory. His first year, he said, was a great success. He didn't mention one thing about the coal fields. He didn't do one thing to help the coal fields. So, you know, I think accountability is something that we're going to have to talk a lot about in Kentucky over these next 3 years.
I want to talk with you about what you see as the issues coming up and what may be next for you. We'll be back on WKYT in just a moment as we visit with the departing Speaker of the Kentucky House, Greg Stumbo. And a little bit later, we'll hear from the Better Business Bureau on Kentucky Newsmakers. We welcome you back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers as we visit with Speaker Greg Stumbo, who will be leaving that office on December 31st, and it's come to be real at this point, right? You're ready to go, move on to the next chapter?
I took my fish off the wall. That's when I knew it was real, when I took my bass off the wall.
What accomplishments are you proudest of in your years in Frankfort?
If I had to look at one, and I get asked that question a lot, it would be the Education Reform Act of 1990. And I point to my district to show the success. You know, Floyd County traditionally had been at the bottom of the heap In 1990, we passed the Education Reform Act bill. I was a prime sponsor, the prime sponsor. We knew it would take 20 to 25 years to really see the results. And you look at Floyd County now, we're in the top 10 in the state. All of our schools are either schools of distinction or proficient schools. Schools where kids get 90+% free lunch, are, in areas that traditionally don't do well, are performing with every other school in the state, even from the urban areas and the wealthy districts. And that's not just because of CARE, it's because we have Henry Webb and a great team of leaders up there, but it's partially because of CARE. So we're seeing gains in rural Kentucky. And people say, well, do we need changes in the education system? I said, no, you just need to model after Floyd County.
What would you say was the most elusive for you? What is the greatest disappointment that you'll be leaving Frankfort having not accomplished?
I wanted to pass a bill one time that would not allow smoking in cars where you had children under the age of 15. A couple of states have done that. Actually, my wife and daughter and I were sitting in Frankfort one day, and it was a cold day like today, and we were having lunch, and we looked, and here's these two people got in the car. They had two kids strapped in the back seat of the car, and they both had cigarettes. And we started talking about that. I had a bill like that. The advocates actually for the American Cancer Society and the non-smoking, statewide non-smoking ban asked me to hold up on that because they wanted to push the non-smoking ban statewide, which we passed in the House thanks to Susan Westrom and her efforts, which I did, but I wish I could have passed that bill. I mean, to me, it's almost criminal when you put kids in car seats and they can't get out, and you get in the car in a confined area, and we know secondhand smoke has a bad effect on health, and you make them breathe that air. That's just not, I wish I could have passed that bill.
You have said that change can be good. You know that the Republicans will go a different direction from your leadership over the years. What is your best hope for them and their agenda?
Well, Kentucky's doing pretty good. I mean, Steve Beshear did a heck of a job bringing us through that recession. Our growth is up in the 5% range. And actually, if we didn't have the problem in the coal fields that we have, it'd probably be 6 or 6.5%. And that's phenomenal growth. Every percent means about a new $100 million. The state budget's about $10 billion. These are rough numbers. So if you get 6% growth, you get $600 million new dollars to spend every year for education and to run state government, the programs that state government does. So our economy's pretty good. I just hope they don't mess it up. Some of the things they talk about have detrimental effects. Prevailing wage law, for example, doesn't mean you have to hire union workers. It means you have to pay for public works a specific salary for certain jobs, so you don't go and hire illegal immigrants and things like that. I was the prime sponsor of the bill that has built all of these schools, the School Facilities Construction Bill. All across Kentucky, we've got new schools. We've not had one problem due to faulty construction. We've had a problem with blasting in Martin County. We had a problem with foundations down in Lyon County, but not one problem have we had with faulty construction. So when you take away a prevailing wage law, you open this up to contractors to bring in people and pay them substantial wages, and you get what you pay for. You build a public building, you ought to build it the best you can build it, in my opinion.
There were many bills that would come down from the Republican Senate, which has been controlled by them now for this century, most of this century, and their complaint would be that it then got bottled up and thrown away in a committee somewhere by the Democrats and went nowhere in the House.
Well, it happened both ways, if you remember.
Well,
my minimum wage bill always died over in the Republican Senate. Our smoking ban died in the Republican Senate. Our lift bill died in the Republican Senate. Our casino gaming bill died one time in the Republican Senate. So, it's a two-way street.
Well, given the new layout, will they be able to pass whatever they want?
I think they'll drop back on some of those things. Bevin's already dropped back on this transgender bathroom issue. He's saying he's not going to do it. We don't need it. Well, there's a lot of people think we do need it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with all that. We've had to deal with the ultra-liberal part of our party. People refer to that as the left. Well, they've got people who are ultra-conservative that people refer to as the right that are going to have maybe different views. I believe that government's best formed in the middle. That, you take a guy like Jeff Hoover and you take a guy like Greg Stumbo and you figure out, and we've done this before, what we can live with and what we can pass and what we can come together with. Instead of, I tell people, Bill, this is true, there are people in my party who don't need to be in charge of government, in my view, and there are people in the Republican Party who don't need to be in charge of government, in my view, because the extremists cause more problems in a democracy than anything else.
When you went there, John Y. Brown, a businessman,
we came in office together.
Was the governor,
yeah.
You know, and was by any measure moderate, certainly, and business leaning on lots of issues. As you saw things change over the years, as you say, elements of your party changed and the Republicans changed. Did it have to get so bitterly divisive up there?
Well, it didn't, and we try to tell our members, and I think Jeff Hoover would say the same thing. You and I can be disagreeable, but we don't have to be disrespectful, and it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, debate needs to occur. Debate needs to be orderly. It needs to be as factual as it can be without our emotions becoming involved. But a lot of these issues are emotional issues. And I've been involved in emotional issues. What brought me to Frankfort in the first place was a broad form deed. I saw a friend of mine whose land got mined without his permission, and it upset me. So I want to go to Frankfort and do something about that.
What is next for you? Are you done with politics, or could you return in the same form or in another form?
Well, not in the same form, probably. You know, when I became Attorney General, I wanted to do something about the drug epidemic in Kentucky. When I decided to come back to the Kentucky House, because I learned that our own doctors in Kentucky were causing part of the problem. It wasn't just the out-of-state prescriptions that were coming into our state. It was our own doctors weren't using our CASPER system. And so that became a passion for me to come back, and that led to House Bill 1, which has reduced opioid abuse in our state tremendously. So if there's another passion out there for me, I'll look for it and accept it, and I'm not ruling it out, but I'm kind of enjoying, I think, going. I've got to go to some things I never got to go to before. I got to go to my piano recital for my granddaughter the other day.
You've done a statewide run before. Would you do it again?
I've done, I think, 3. And so they're a lot of fun. If I find the right issue and there's passion, and I think there's a calling, yes, I wouldn't rule it out. But I'm not looking for that. I'm just going to wait and see what happens and go back and practice law.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for coming. We
Thank
appreciate
you for
it
having
for the
me.
many times you've come over the years. And we're back on Kentucky Newsmakers, a visit from the Better Business Bureau next. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT, and we're hoping you're having a wonderful Christmas weekend. Many of you have been unwrapping gifts this morning. You may have discovered that some things don't fit or the wrong color, that kind of thing. Many of those stockings have been stuffed with gift cards as well. You may be fearing some of those will expire or have their value chewed up by fees. Well, in her years with the Better Business Bureau of the Bluegrass, Heather Clary has seen it all. She's also been tracking the biggest scandals of 2016. Looking ahead to the new year as the BBB keeps track of reputable businesses and those who don't meet customer expectations. Heather, you're like Santa, just as dependable. We appreciate you coming in.
I'm so glad to be here this morning.
We're glad you're here with us. As we've often done this on a regular basis. So many have gathered around the tree and opened the gifts over this weekend. If something doesn't fit, or if it is the wrong color, or something's wrong, are there rules that govern whether you have a right to get an exchange or refund?
The thing with refund and exchange policies at most stores is they are allowed to set what that policy is. State law says that merchants may set their own refund and exchange policies. Many of them will have stretched the deadlines out a little bit because of the holiday. A lot of you are going to be going back maybe on Monday because that's a holiday for many folks. They can set their own policies. Many times it's on the receipt. If you're lucky, you got a gift receipt included with the present, and that makes it very easy to exchange. But some stores may tell you, well, we can't give you a cash refund for this. We'll give you store credit, and you can choose another item, and they have the right to do that. Depending on what the item is, if it's something you've opened and it's an electronic or a DVD, sometimes there are restocking fees involved. So just kind of go in there knowing that so there are not any big surprises, but hopefully you'll have a good experience in getting some good deals and exchanging those things or finding something that is right.
Are Are some people surprised by finding out that there are rules that the store sets?
I think some people might be, and many stores post them right over their customer service desk. They're at every cash register. Some folks have told us in the past, we like to go, we're going to exchange this. Well, this doesn't fit, or I don't like this, and there's nothing else in the store I like. But if it's past a certain deadline where they'll only give you credit, like, well, you have to choose something.
Does the same thing apply for online retailers?
Many times it does. You may have been given a label that you can mail back an item. You can usually find out what the policy is right online on any website that does sell items. And again, the restocking fees could come into play. You might be able to exchange it at a local bricks and mortar and then get a gift card and use it online. All you have to do is ask, and generally you can find out what's going on that way.
Does making a purchase using a credit card give you any extra layer of protection?
Well, we often tell people that if you use a credit card, especially with a company you've not dealt with before, or if you're online, it can actually be a good thing because you often have more protections to dispute charges if something goes wrong or you don't get the item. And some of your own credit card providers have special policies for their own customers. So if you don't want to run up a credit card, you're getting some deals after Christmas, that might be actually a good thing to do in this case if you're dealing with stores you aren't familiar with online or elsewhere.
All right, gift cards are very common these days.
Yeah, the gift of shopping.
Exactly. But are there rules that govern whether they expire or whether, some sort of fee sort of chews up the value of them?
Many folks are not aware, but the law did change back in 2010 that says gift cards may not expire for 5 years from the time they are activated. And another thing we always advise at the Better Business Bureau, don't let those cards lay around in the sock drawer or the jewelry box forever, because stores do close. Retailers, restaurants, merchants, leaving you high and dry. If there's nowhere else to use it, if there's not an online site you can use it at, you're just out the money. You're out. That's why retailers love gift cards. Sometimes it's gravy for them. They just get all the money. So use them quickly, because some of them can also lose value from inactivity fees. If it's been sitting around for a year, you may lose a few bucks off of it. All of this should be printed on the packaging or the card itself so that you can, but just watch the calendar on that.
So if a business does go out of business, you could be out of luck.
If they've gone bankrupt, anything like that, you got a $40 gift card, $60 gift card to someplace. Some stores will make, or retailers, merchants, whatever it is, may make some other arrangements. Sometimes other stores will honor them. You just kind of have to watch what the situation is with that particular retailer or merchant and see what you can get out of it while you can.
We have heard some reports this season of people making purchases of some of these gift cards that are, at retailers, the rack you go in, and it's, for all kinds of restaurants and other stores, and that somehow they have been pre-drained. Is that something you've heard some about?
We'll hear that can happen. I hadn't heard a lot of it in this area, but that's where buying the gift card for someone ahead of time calls for a little bit of vigilance. Look to see if anybody's been tampering with the packaging. I mean, some retailers will say, well, this can't happen. But if they've scratched off the number on the back, reclosed it, they've run off with the number, you're left with a worthless card. I mean, the retailer might be able to do something for you. If you're not sure about that, you can always buy it from the cashier right there at the desk if they have it, and that way you'll know it hasn't been tampered with.
All right, so that way just try to inspect it before you take it out.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the scammers obviously take no holidays. In fact,
they've been busy all year long.
I was going to say they may take advantage of the holidays and everybody being busy, right? So what have been some of the biggest things that we've seen during 2016?
I think for at least the second year in a row, the biggest thing any Better Business Bureau has seen is the IRS imposter phone scam. Many of your viewers have probably received these calls, threatening sounding calls. We're with the U.S. Treasury, you owe some money, you better call us right away. And Americans have lost millions of dollars to this because you hear IRS. Many folks know, well, I don't have a job or I'm on disability, I don't pay taxes. But remember, it's just another one of those. The scammer tries to disguise themselves as a government agency. They do not call you. It's not slowing down too much, so watch out for that. Or also emails you get received that have the logos, falsely using those, especially when you're getting ready to start filing your taxes come January. Be very careful of that. The IRS does not contact you in those ways.
What are some other things that you're watching for? As you said, some of them are what we might call recurrent hits, right? They keep coming back.
And they come with new twists and versions of them, but the scammers love to get to us through our computers. And many of us, let's face it, we don't know a lot about how those things work. And the Microsoft tech support phone scammers have been really working hard. They call and pretend to be with Microsoft. Oh, we've noticed your computer is about to crash. It's been infected with viruses. I can fix that for you. They have you take steps to let them into your computer, and they'll do Lord knows what. They plant more viruses to steal your information and then charge you for it. Any more of these are occurring through pop-ups. You're innocently surfing the net. I've heard people tell me bells and whistles have gone off, and it says call this number. It's not Microsoft. If that happens, do not do it. Take it to someone you've used before, or call us at the Better Business Bureau. We can hook you up with some legitimate local folks that can fix computers.
And you also said that there are times when people, they build a trust with somebody, maybe some of these websites where people are looking for companionship, and then they
Facebook
go in for the money.
Yeah, Facebook and social media has really been big in trying to scam. The scammers will go through those venues to try to scam people. I mean, we've heard tales over the years of women talking to men who said they were overseas. They even set up a Facebook page and dress in fatigues. I'm lonely, talk to me, develop a relationship, then ask you to start sending money. It's just a scammer, friends, you know, and any other things that come to you that, like, you've got money coming to you. I saw your name on a list. They'll hack your friends' websites, send these suspicious things to everybody on their friend list. So if something doesn't feel quite right, it's best to step back, check into it a little bit further. Don't, look before you leap.
We mentioned earlier the BBB tries to reward reputable businesses. At the same time, you're watching for those who don't meet customer satisfaction. If people have something they need to bring to your attention, what do they do?
Well, they can give us a call if they want to either file a complaint, check out a business, or if they want to find a list of businesses they can trust that meet our ethical standards. They can call us at 259-1008, or the fastest way is on our website at bbb.org/Lexington. There's a whole slew of information on there at your fingertips.
All right. Heather, Clary, it's always good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Merry
it very
Christmas
much.
and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. And we want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. We certainly hope you make it a very Merry Christmas and have a good week ahead.